Kanaka and Namaste. Welcome back. You're watching Fiji Village Straight Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan. Our guest for tonight, a very special one. We've been trying to get this party and the leader of opposition for some time. And you as viewers would really be happy that we have them at the table. And of course, this is after many attempts and discussions taking place. Fiji Village Straight Talk focuses on issues that matter to you, the people of the country, inviting guests to talk about varying issues on our platform. Some may be thorny, but we put the questions out there, and it is all about allowing yourselves to be held accountable, be transparent to the taxpayers of the country. Our guest tonight, the leader of the opposition, Mr. Inia Seruiratu. Welcome to our show, sir.
Thank you, Vijay, and thank you for this opportunity. I've been looking forward to this as well. We, as members of the opposition, though new in the role, we always look forward to engaging with the general public. And of course, this is a good opportunity for us to do so. And thank you again for having me on your show this evening.
It's a pleasure, but definitely burning questions are there. Is there a reason why the Fiji First Party last year did not come to our table, despite numerous requests?
Unfortunately, I cannot provide an answer to that because I am new in the role as the leader of the opposition. And I do not make the call then, I do not make the decision, so, but be assured, I will always be available should you wish to have me on your program.
Thank you for giving us that assurance to the people. In the 2014 general elections, Mr. Seruiratu, the Fiji First Party got a total of 293,714 votes. In 2018, you got 227,241 votes. And in last year's elections, you got 2,246 votes. Have you analyzed why your votes continued to drop from 2014, and what were the main reasons for the drop?
Of course, I think every political party does that after every election. We also, as a party, after 2014, we did our own analysis. Again, in 2018, we did our analysis, and most recently in 2022 elections as well. We have taken note, not only through the candidates, but also through our key stakeholders, particularly the general public that we represent. And we take note of both the positives and the negatives in that, and that will help us to continue to strategize and improve on the areas that need addressing so that we can be competitive come the next general election. But despite the results, even after 2022, although it's unfortunate that we could not form government, we are still the single largest party on its own in Parliament. And of course, that also gives us some confidence in the trust, in the faith that the people have in us. But of course, there are issues that we also need to address so that we can continue to remain relevant and provide the best option as well for our people when it comes to the leadership of the country.
What were some of the main factors you think that, based on your analysis, that the votes dropped?
Policies. In the most recent election, we were told by most of the people that we have been making a lot of emphasis on what we have achieved over the years, but perhaps not much on what else can we offer if we come back into government. I think that's a very valid feedback for us. And then it's about our timings is important as well. In terms of identification of the candidates, in terms of preparing them, and the activities that do come with it. We need to spend more time in the electorates, visiting the communities, engaging with them, listening to their issues as well. This is a key component because we are here to represent the people and be their voice and be their eyes and ears as well into government or whenever we are in Parliament. That's another key area for us. And of course, no government is perfect. We have been in government for the last 8 years. There are areas that we need to work on, and we have taken note of those as well. And these are some of the things that we will consider seriously when we prepare for the next one.
Now, we've had elections, and in December, Christmas Eve, Parliament took a vote. Coalition government is in power. What is your view on democracy and rule of law?
Let me take you back, Vijay, to the statements that I made in my response to His Excellency the President's opening address. We have accepted the results of the 2022 general elections. And of course, government has been formed. Although we were the majority party in Parliament, but we unfortunately cannot form government. Government has been formed, and we respect that as well. And we, in good faith, have stated that we have handed over to the coalition government, not a perfect Fiji, but a better Fiji than the one we inherited, based on a few things. You know, the state of the economy, rebounding back after COVID, the constitution, rule of law and governance. But at the same time, we have also raised our concern about governance, particularly with the new government, the coalition government. You will recall that in the first session of Parliament, in the end of week statement, one of the issues that we raised was institutional integrity. We have been in government for 8 years, and at the same time, the coalition government has been in the opposition and government in waiting as well for the last 8 years as well. So we were hoping that they would hit the ground running, given the fact that they have been in the opposition and government in waiting for the last 8 years. And for them to come up with excuses that they are a new government and they still, to me, that is unacceptable. We expected more from them. In terms of governance and the rule of law, we have raised our concerns. The party has raised its concerns. We will talk about the party leadership later on. At the same time, we as members of the opposition caucus within Parliament, we have also raised our concerns on governance and the rule of law. Democracy is not only about going into elections and winning elections. What is important is the governance aspect, the day-to-day running of government. And we as a government, we must lead by example. We are bounded by the same laws, the rules, constitution. And we have raised our concerns on some of these issues, particularly in the appointment of key civil servants, key appointments in the civil service, in the appointment of boards of directors, in the appointments of the judiciary. We have raised our concern in some of these areas. And again, for us, it's about the principles of good governance and democracy. We need to be alert to this. And at the same time, this is important because we need to create the environment for progress, for investment, for growth, for development, and for our people to live together in harmony.
It must be a very important call, sir.
I don't know. I put this on silent. Sorry for this.
No worries. The people can wait for that. You can continue after that, or you've finished?
I'll finish.
Okay. Now, my question. You're talking about democracy. A lot of your laws came through Standing Order 51 without any consultation. Is that democracy?
Standing Orders 51, Vijay, is there for a purpose. Not all laws that came into Parliament came through Standing Orders 51.
Majority of them came.
But the majority of those were for minor amendments, consequential bills. But for those that came through normal processes as well, consultations were made. It's not only consultations within Parliament, because Parliament has its processes, but of course there were consultations done at the executive level as well. I know that in the recent Parliament, an honourable member was talking about the difference between executive consultations and legislative consultations. But we did our best within the context to ensure that where consultations are due,
but do you believe that you should have consulted more on some of the bills that were quite pressing and affected a lot of people?
Within the context, probably
now,
we could have done better.
You could have done better?
Could have done better.
More consultation, more voice of the
consultations.
People? Now,
that's important because we need to
take stock of how things went.
Sure.
Do you believe you will come back into government within this 4-year period? And are there still attempts underway to get SODELPA on your side?
Let me tell you this. Since we came in to Parliament as opposition, it is a new learning experience for us. The change in role from government to opposition. But this is what we keep emphasizing in our caucus. Let's not see ourselves as the opposition, because that will distract us in a lot of ways and things. But we always see ourselves as the government in waiting. We always see ourselves as the alternative government. And being an alternative government, or the government in waiting, we have to be ready at any time to take over the responsibility should the situation so decides. But again, let me go back to this role of opposition. I've been in Parliament for the last 8 years. Unfortunately, in the past, most members of the opposition were opposing simply because they are opposition members, opposing almost everything for the sake of opposing. Right now, under my leadership in Parliament, I am guiding our caucus members. Let's speak responsibly in Parliament, because we see ourselves as the government in waiting. Options are still open, Vijay. Options are still open. If SODELPA so decides to abandon the current condition, and again, subject to negotiations and agreement. But we are always welcome.
So you are Prime Minister in waiting?
Pardon?
You are Prime Minister in
waiting?
waiting?
As the opposition leader, Prime Minister in waiting.
What if it presents to you that you should be the next Prime Minister if the chance comes?
Well, the caucus will decide. You know, I am there on the support of our caucus. So that's something that's democracy. That's something that we will respect as well.
You have the support
but going
of
back
your
to your
caucus?
question, going back to your question, we are ready. We are ready should the opportunity be provided for us.
National security issue, Mr. Seruiratu. What is your message to the people on the opposition's view on coup plans that have been talked about?
Let me say that we condemn the coup culture. We have laid the platform, we meaning the then Fiji First government has laid the platform, hopefully that will take us forward. And we need to nurture, we need to protect our young democracy that we have established. Of course, there are challenges. We will not shy away from that. But when it comes to this allegation, this conspiracy theory about the possibility of having a coup, again, from us as the alternative government, it's not good for us in the short term, in the medium term, in the long term, because investors are listening. Tourists, they intend to come to Fiji, and that's something that we need to protect, the golden goose, our tourism sector. And this story about the coup, it's not going to bring us any good as we speak. And for us, as members of the opposition, we do not want to associate ourselves with this thinking.
The Prime Minister has come out in a few statements in his briefing to the nation, and within that he's asked to work with the opposition, has said that the door's open, let's work together, let's change the way we do things and work together for Fiji. As leader of the opposition, what are your thoughts on that?
Vijay, I have also offered our support and assistance should it be required. But I have made it very clear to government that that does not mean us deviating from our principles, us deviating from our standards. And this is what we keep emphasizing with government. We have a lot of experience in this, in the opposition, apart from the skills and the knowledge and for matters of national interest, we are always ready and available to work with government. But then we must also ensure that the principles, the ethical standards, the discipline must be maintained. Systems and processes that we have established, those are the things that we need to protect. As I've stated, it's not only about winning elections and forming a government. Government has a huge responsibility, and we need to ensure that when it comes to matters of national interest, we work together for the betterment of our country.
Mr. Seruiratu, we also, as we said, that there were questions that were sent in through our audience who had emailed and called in with questions. This question is from Nemani Ramasei. He lives in Pennsylvania. He says, when it comes to the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, the coalition government straight away after coming into power ratified the convention, while for 16 years the Fiji First Party completely ignored the native Fijians and their rights as indigenous people. Who is calling the shots for the Fiji First Party to leave the rights of the Itoke people for the last 16 years? What's your comments?
Thank you, Vijay. I stand to be corrected, but ratification has to come through Parliament, according to our laws. There has not been any ratification lately, but to my understanding, ILO 169 has been ratified long ago. I don't have the exact year, but it's a matter of the implementation of the conventions of ILO 169 that has been the question of debate over the last few years. We took our position that Itokes, the indigenous Fijians, are well protected under our constitution, and of course the benefits that come with it. Fiji First government is not anti-Itoke. We are there for all Fijians, but it's the interpretation of ILO 69 and the context in which it is to be implemented in Fiji. That is where the difference lies, over the years. Because comparing Itokes to other indigenous people in other countries, we have always stated that Fiji is far, far better off in terms of the protection of the rights of Itokes, their culture, their access to economic activities and whatever, through the various government programs. And through our initiatives as government, there were a lot of initiatives that were started off by the Fiji First government to look at the issues concerning Ito case as well. But we are not only looking at Ito case specifically, but of course all Fijians, so that we can all prosper together and move forward.
How are you looking at statistics? Because you may remember when the Bureau of Statistics came out with stats that had ethnic breakdowns in it. There was a real opposition to it, and eventually Kemueli Naiqama, the CEO at the time, lost his job because of that. So how were stats being compared to ensure that the Ito-K compared to other races were doing well?
Vijay, I think this all goes down to the policies of government. You know, ethnicity or race for that matter is a matter of fact, and we cannot ignore it. But as a matter of policy, we look at Ito case, Indo-Fijians, we are all Fijians. It does not mean that we are turning a blind eye on statistics. Statistics are factual, and of course there are programs and initiatives in place to address these poverty issues, but not only on one particular ethnic group, but to all of us. As I've stated, through the government programs, a lot has been done, from education to infrastructure development, economic empowerment. That is for all Fijians. But again, let me also state here that we cannot be selective on statistics. The Minister for Finance, while he was in opposition, he has always disagreed with poverty figures in Fiji. And I have never heard him in Parliament since he came in as a government minister to state about the national poverty figures in Fiji. But deputy ministers and even one or two ministers have stated the national poverty level, which is around 24.5%. I stand to be corrected on that. So let's not be selective on where we use statistics to suit our purposes, and of course deny.
I'm just asking you the question on ethnic data, just how the approach was taken. This is another question that had come in. There are no more fears now, no more sending the workers home for speaking out against the government. Why did the Fiji First Party government decided to rule that way when the initial plan was to clean up the SDL in the first place?
That has to be proven, Vijay, that there is no fear now in government because of the change in government. But if you look at statistics, migration, it's taking place at an alarming trend. We've talked about institutional integrity. We respect the highly professional, qualified civil servants that we have. But, you know, there has been recent cases about politicians that are now heavily involved in operational issues, micromanaging. So these are the things, again, as I've stated, there can be arguments about how we performed as a government. Again, that has to be proven. But at the same time, when you're looking at the public service, we created the environment. We did the reforms so that we can become more effective and efficient in the way we do things. And that is an ongoing process. It's something that will not just, cannot be addressed over a short period of time, but there would be an expectation for the government that comes in to continue with this, because we need our civil servants. We need our civil servants.
You're watching Fiji Village Straight Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan. We'll be back after this break.
Why are we playing outside? Because my dad is thinking my home is going to be super cool. No way!
Yeah, he makes me a new desk.
Whoa, then we can stay together.
He's also gonna paint my walls.
Where did he get this tooth from?
Kasabia's there for everything you need.
I wish my dad could do that.
Because your dad is not Kasabia's dad.
Dad, go to Kasabi's!
Welcome back. You're watching Fiji Village Straight Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan. Our guest tonight, the leader of the opposition, Mr. Inia Seruiratu. Mr. Seruiratu, government debt increased from about $2.6 billion back in end of 2006 to more than $9 billion this year. Questions continue to be raised on the unprecedented debt and borrowings over 16 years. What is your response to this?
Thank you, Vijay. Thank you for asking this question. And this is an interesting topic that we really need to discuss and have clarity on it as well. Let me say this. First, let's look at how debt has evolved over the years. We are a developing country, and the unfortunate thing in most developing countries, when we look at our yearly budgets, we will always have more in terms of our planned expenditure, but less in terms of our projected revenue. And that has always resulted in deficits in our budget. And the Fiji government, since independence, we have always been on this trend, deficits. But we continue to accumulate the debts over the years because simply we want to do more, but we are generating less. Let me put this into context as well. You know, prior to elections, and Fiji First has been blamed as well for this, you talked about unprecedented debt level. There are a few things. Let's put it in the right context. And this is something that I've always been looking forward to explain to the people. Let's look at the macroeconomic fundamentals. Okay, we're talking about the nominal value of the debt. I'll come back to that. We have a healthy foreign reserve, which is sitting at around 3 billion or so, from the 500 million around 2005, 2006. And then we have liquidity. That's our foreign reserve. We have the liquidity here in government. Liquidity is high. Hopefully, people will start to utilize the funds that we have. But you know, building up to elections, a lot of focus was on the nominal debt, the figure that has increased from 3 billion to 5 billion and now to 9-point-something billion. And that nominal debt, again, in the current budget, will increase to 10-point-something because of the deficit of 600 million plus, as already outlined in the budget. But we have not taken the effort to explain very clearly to the people, particularly our voters, why we have to continue with this borrowing trend.
Why?
Simply because we want to have more, but we are raising less.
How much more?
In terms of our income. I'll come back to that. I'll come back to that. But then, if you put it in the context as well, why is Fiji given opportunity to borrow more? Because we have also grown the economy. Let's not forget that. The economy has grown, our GDP, from the 5 billion or what to the 12 point something billion. We cannot borrow more. I cannot go to the bank and borrow more if they look at my income level. So that same analogy is applicable in our debt as well. That is why Fiji First was given the opportunity to borrow more because the economy has grown. And I have stated this in my response to the President's address as well. Because I have noted in the President's address that government is already, the coalition government is making an excuse that they want to do more in terms of social policy, protection, whatever you call it, infrastructure development, but then we are constrained by the debt level. If you look at most of what the economists, including the World Bank, debt is not a bad thing to have, but as long as it is manageable. I'll say that again. And as long as it is manageable. So that is why our income is very, very important. Let me go back to this story about the debt prior to elections. People were told that there's too much debt for Fiji. Severe and now. Even to the point where debt was allocated per capita. Oh, we need to at least, there's a debt burden of around $10,000 per person. But the fact is, it is manageable within the situation that we are in. I've said, and I'll say it again, this is why it's important for us to grow the economy. If you look at I'll cover the debt to GDP ratio. The debt to GDP ratio from 2010, it was around 53 point something percent. I need to be corrected on this. Towards 2015, debt to GDP ratio fell from that 53 point something to 48 or whatever. 47%. Okay, that's a period. And then 2016. What came in 2016? Winston. After Winston was Joshi. After that was Kenny. It took us 500 million spread over 3 years to recover from these three catastrophes. So the debt to GDP ratio was on an upward trend. And whilst we are still on that trend, COVID came. So that really surged. That was the surge. From that level to 2019 was around 48. We went up right to 80 point something percent. But what I find rather strange, after all those discussions prior to elections, now the current coalition government is focusing more on debt to GDP ratio. Because they have increased revenue, but at the same time, there has been an increase in expenditure as well, but they've managed to bring the debt to GDP ratio down, but at the same time, the nominal debt has increased. You are adding another 600 million. That is the context, and we need to discuss this openly and transparently.
We need to grow the cake. That's why we're here.
We need to grow the cake.
We're giving this platform. We need to grow the cake, and we need to continue to grow the cake, and we'll talk about that as well. And the cake is meaning the GDP. If we are just sticking on to one sector or more than one sector, and if we have another catastrophe like COVID, we could end up in a situation again if we just relying on tourism. We'll get there. But my question is, there's a lot of questions being raised on more than $3.6 billion in taxpayers' money spent on Fiji Roads Authority. an organization that did not front up with a strategic plan when they were asked to make a presentation on how it has been doing its work. This was confirmed by the Fiscal Review Committee when an analysis was being done. The representative of the organization turned up with an A4 size piece of paper with some things written on them. No strategic plan, billions of dollars, most likely that debt that we got from different people, or tax dollars. What are your comments?
On Fiji Roads Authority?
Yeah.
Thank you. Let me say this, Vijay. There was an audit conducted around 2012, 2013, or even probably earlier, about the state of infrastructure in Fiji. Out of that audit that was carried out, government decided to form FRA and the Water Authority of Fiji, from where it was previously as Water Supplies and the Public Works Department and the Department of National Roads, again under Ministry of Works and PWD, so to speak. Strategic plan, I have also inquired with FRA about the strategic plan. The answer that I was given is the priorities that they were working on is the priority that has already been identified in the National Development Plan. I say that again. The priorities of work that FRA had been doing over the years is the priority already identified in the National Development Plan. That is why the organization, again, it's under a board. I cannot speak on behalf of the board, but they have been implementing the projects according to what has been identified in the National Development Plan. But then, if we go back to the formation of FRA, the current Minister for Defense was the first chairman of FRA. Who was the next chairman of FRA? The current PS Public Service Commission, Mr. Pramesh Chan. He was the second chairman of FRA. Why didn't FRA have a strategic development plan then? Let me come to the issue of how the fund was utilized. Vijay, this is about the integrity of the people.
It's about $3.6 billion.
We need to put this in the right context.
Exactly.
When that audit was carried out, I'll just talk on bridges alone. 100 and I don't have the exact number, 130 or so plus of bridges in Fiji were identified as condemned, critical stage, and in the process of to be replaced. 130 something bridges. I did not see that in the fiscal review report. They will only mention that 30 or so bridges or whatever needs to be fixed. They did not mention that out of that 130 something bridges, FRA, since its inception, has already constructed 81 bridges, according to Honorable Vijay Narayan in his statement last week. Because I know for a fact that it was over 60 a few years back, the bridges that have been constructed. You go around Suba, Watuanga Bridge, Tamabuiwai Bridge, this one here next to the supermarket. And then you go around Vitilevu, you go to Vanualevu. 80 plus of those bridges have already been fixed by FRA, let alone the roads, jetties. So we need to put this in the proper context. Of course, there may be some issues that needs to be addressed. I know that probably the current government is initiating an investigation. We welcome that. But of course, to be fair on FRA and to government as well, the government then, we need to talk about facts.
As a government in waiting, you're saying you're a government in waiting. Do you believe, or if you do come in, do you believe that FRA should have a strategic plan on its own?
They should.
They should.
They should.
So you'll make sure it's done if they haven't done
Of
one?
course, yes.
Thank you
Of
very
course,
much.
yes.
Question from Avinesh Deo. Why was laundry from CWM Hospital taken to a private laundry in Nandi after the fire at CWM Laundry? Wasn't there any laundry in Suva where it could have been taken for cleaning?
Unfortunately, I will just make a general comment because whoever is responsible for the decision, again, I've stated this and from us, the government in waiting, the opposition have been stating as well. There has been a lot of conspiracy theories, allegations about some deals that were done probably not in the proper manner.
Allegedly.
Government has every right now to conduct the proper investigations. And this is something that I am also considering come the September sitting of Parliament to either move a motion or in one of my addresses tell government, please, let's be fair, let's do an investigation on the low-talker swimming pool, on the sale of shares for EFL, the Fiji Airways deal, the $1 million digger scam or whatever. They are in government now. And, Walesi and so forth. We welcome that. In the name of transparency and good governance, let's go ahead with that. But then, I'll go back to your substantive question. These are the things that we need to look into so that we can clarify. This is why I'm thankful that I am given this opportunity so that we can
Thank you for that.
put the matters at rest.
We look forward to you moving that motion for those investigations.
Yes, I'm seriously considering that.
A lot of work has been done on our infrastructure, but according to Water Authority of Fiji CEO, who was here on the show, about 47% of our treated water paid for by tax dollars leaking through aging pipes. From your perspective, how has this come about with Water Authority of Fiji now scrambling on certain days to provide water? They have to turn off water for various places in Suvarnasori corridor at night so that there's water for people running in the taps the next morning. We know the Viria project is about to be completed. But this issue about aging pipes, from your perspective as the leader of opposition and also a former member of the previous government for 8 years, what's your assessment of this?
I've stated, Vijay, that an audit was carried out. This is reality, but we cannot fix it all at once. Those leaking pipes has been there for ages, from previous government, and of course when the Bainimarama government came in, and then when the Fiji First government came in, it's been there for
When will it be fixed?
ages. Then that is the question. We will have to, I think one of the early visits of the Honorable Minister for Finance was to Water Authority of Fiji. And I asked this question in Parliament. Water Authority has already given you their list. They need about 800 million in the next 5 years to fix these water problems. I've looked at the allocation, but unfortunately the allocation this year, I think 50-something million is just for the completion of the Viria project. That this is one of the solutions that will help solve, hopefully alleviate some of the problems that we have particularly in the Suva, Lami, Nosori corridor.
Not the aging
But
pipes.
the aging pipes, that we need specific allocation so that Water Authority can fix it.
Do you have a solution on that?
Let's find the money so that Water Authority can do it. And Water Authority...
What's your solution? You are government in waiting.
Sorry?
What's your solution? You are government in waiting.
We have a technical expertise there who can fix it. But remember that these are public services that are given to this, but they are heavily funded. They rely on government to provide the funding. So what authority can fix it over a period of time if they are given the allocation? So if I were in
I'm
government.
asking you again, what's
Yes,
the solution?
we
People are watching, they want to
we would find the money. We would find the money. And that money has been given as well to the Minister for Finance. They need 800 million in the next 5 years to fix that problem. So, over a period of time, gradually, they need to allocate funding to fix that water problem.
Mr. Seruiratu, we talked about growing the cake, the GDP. What do you think should be done for the diversification of our industries to assist the growth of our economy rather than just relying on the growth of tourism? It's good to continue to grow tourism, but not to just rely on tourism as the only industry. We need to diversify, we need to look at agriculture, we need to look at markets, we need to make sure that the farmer is comfortable, that the market comes to the farmer, that there's a proper supply chain that goes straight from the farm. These things seriously affected us during COVID. What is the solution?
Vijay, first let me agree with you, and this has been an issue that has been on the table for quite a long while. The need for us to diversify, the need for us to broaden the economic base, and this all comes to the policies of government. And of course for us to ensure that we create the environment and look at providing the resources as well, so that these sectors can also function and of course bring about the necessary growth and create employment for our country. Let me say this. This is something that, the 2023-24 budget, I would say, is now history. It has been discussed, debated. Government has come up with their expenditure plans and, of course, their revenue projections as well. It is now history. But what we were critically looking for from the opposition, from the alternative government perspective is, what are these solutions in terms of policy that will help us to diversify? Of course, we fully understand the fact that tourism is a big contributor, but then COVID has proven that we cannot over-rely on the tourism sector. So this is where the policy of government becomes very, very critical, because when we looked at the budget, government has managed to grow, to increase their income, but mainly through taxation. Whereas during the Fiji First government, we were looking at, we've talked about growing the economy through investments, and of course growing the economy through consumption. We can argue on this. I have heard and I have read that during the fiscal review committee submissions, they said, oh, this did not work, this policy did not work. But the economy grew. If we are to ensure that this happens, one, let's go back to the policies. And then let's look at the critical sectors. I have been Minister for Agriculture. Huge potentials in the agriculture sector. Likewise in fisheries, likewise in forestry, but a lot needs to be done. And I am more than happy with my caucus members to work with government on this, because the economy affects all of us. When the economy grows, when we prosper, everybody benefits. And it's for the good of every Fijian. And this is something that I have had discussions with the Minister for Trade. And I'm waiting for him to come back from Geneva. I've had discussions with the Minister for Agriculture and his assistants. Same thing with the Minister for Itoke Affairs and the Minister for Rural Development. Huge potentials there. But it's the enabling environment, it's the mechanisms that we have to put in place. You've talked about markets. When we were in agriculture, we did the market survey. we went to Australia, we went to New Zealand, even to the US. The demand is huge, but there is no direct link between demand and production. This is where we need to focus on, how we link up production with the demand, particularly with our commodities. You know, I can talk agriculture is my passion, and huge potential in that area, but these are some of the suggestions that we can consider seriously. And as I've stated, more than willing to work with government to look at broadening this economic base and diversifying.
You're watching Fiji Village Straight Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan. We'll be back after this break.
Why are we playing outside?
Because my dad is thinking my home is gonna be super cool.
No way!
Yeah, he makes me a new desk.
Whoa, then we can stay together.
He's also gonna paint my walls.
Where did he get this tooth from?
Kasabias, they have everything you need.
I wish my dad could do that.
Because your dad is not Kasabias dad.
Dad, go to Kasabias!
Welcome back. You're watching Fiji Village Straight Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan. Our guest tonight, the leader of the opposition, Mr. Inia Seruiratu. Mr. Seruiratu, a question from Swastika Devi. Now, she's asking from Nakasi, you are the leader of the opposition in Parliament. You have another leader, Mr. Bainimarama, as a party leader. How does this leadership arrangement work in principle? You and your party's General Secretary, Ayah Said Kayum, were very critical of a similar leadership arrangement of SODELPA. Now Fiji First is in a similar situation. What do you think of your criticism and then of SODELPA, and how is this working for the Fiji First?
I wish to acknowledge Ms. Devi for asking that question, and of course this is an opportunity for me to clarify things as well. For us as a party, things are functioning well, and for us in Parliament as a caucus under my leadership, things are functioning well too. I was asked this question, similar question, after the poll that was published in the Fiji Times last Saturday. And my initial response was this: you know, we are part of a party, that's a fact. And we have the party leadership under the party leader and of course the General Secretary. There are issues that we discuss at the party level. We have party meetings. With the members of the caucus. The party leader comes and the General Secretary comes. We talk about the issues that we are facing. And there are some issues as well where the party is responding. And they have every right as a registered political party to talk on the issues that affects us. Sometimes it comes from the party leader, sometimes it also comes from the party secretary. But for me, I stated this very honestly, I was not expecting this, to be leader of the opposition, because of the unfortunate event that took place within Parliament that resulted in the Privileges Committee dealing with the issue, and of course the party leader was suspended, and he was also the leader of the opposition. But we have to adapt, and we have to be flexible within, as I've stated, it's unfortunate that the party leader cannot be in Parliament and be the opposition leader as well. And for us, it's that situation that led us into this arrangement, which when you make comparisons with SODELPA when they were in the opposition, they had their meetings, they agreed that the party leader becomes the opposition leader, but inside parliament, there was another motion coming from the members of the caucus that appointed another opposition leader while the party leader is still in parliament. That is the difference between our situation and the then opposition. But let me assure all Fijians, we are the single largest party in parliament. We are doing our best to represent the people that voted for us, not only those that voted for us, but every Fijian, because that has been the vision of our leader, serving all Fijians, and that we will continue. And things are functioning well despite the current arrangements. We know the demarcation of responsibilities, and we are working things out in order to adapt. And for me, as leader of the opposition, I control things within parliament, and also you've talked about me being unable to appear in your program. After I became opposition leader, this is one of the key focus, trying to get
You can come to this
caucus in order so that there is consistency in the message, there is certainty, there is positivity, and of course confidence as well.
Just the issue in relation to General Secretary, was that a tactical move or technical knockout that he ejected himself from Parliament? He's a key member of Fiji First, key member in Parliament for years. Definitely you feel his absence?
You know, personally, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but how it happened, and I really cannot answer that. But we need him. You know, his knowledge, experience, and oratory skills, and but it's unfortunate that we do not.
In Parliament, it continues to be said.
But let me assure you, you know, we used to be branded as the silent 25. Nothing is going to change. With the leader, without the leader of the party, without the leader of, without the General Secretary, you know, we have enough firepower and ammunition within the caucus to continue.
In Parliament, it continues to be said that some of those speeches are written by the General Secretary. Is that true? Is that true?
People, you know, you have to respect members. It's unfortunate that, you know, we are accused of the speech being written by the General Secretary. Parliamentarians, they do their own speeches. Of course, there are times where we share our drafts. The new members, they come to us, we share the drafts, and of course, we share that within the party as well. That goes to the. But let me assure every Fijian, you need to give credit to the hard-working parliamentarians who spend the time to draft their own speeches and come up with their own ideas and words, because that also is the expectation of the public. I've made that very clear to my caucus. You know, people voted you and expect you to be their voice in here. So please live up to the expectation and deliver.
Thank you, Mr. Seruiratu. Now, what is your stance on the recent document you would have heard without the author's name calling for military takeover of the government? Given your party talks about stability, why you and any of your Fiji First members and leaders, including the leader and General Secretary, are silent on this issue? This is also a question by Swastika Devi.
Thank you again, Ms. Devi. Thank you for your concern, and thank you for the question as well. Vijay, let me say that I came to know this issue through you. When you gave me the draft on what was circulating in social media, whatever. You know, I know that police are investigating it, and let that process continue. Let that process continue. I have stated that a coup or a takeover is not going to be good for Fiji, and we stand on that. So let the due process take its course, and let's see the outcome that will come out of the investigations.
This question from Bhupendra Solanki, Mr. Seruiratu, in 2021, when your party was in government, an amendment was passed in the Interpretation Act 1967 and also the Electoral Registration Act 2021, requiring only the use of birth certificate names in voter registration and in all other official documentation, including passports. This law effectively meant that many married women who were using their husband's surname had to have their birth certificates amended to include their husband's surname if they wanted to be registered to vote. In July 2023, when the coalition government brought amendments to the law to repeal the Fiji First amendments, the Fiji First Party, now sitting in the opposition, did not oppose the amendment when the Speaker asked, and this was passed unanimously. Please explain the opposition's actions. Do you now agree that the amendments made in 2021 were done without public consultation?
I need to clarify the opposition's position when that bill was brought into Parliament. It's unfortunate that before the Speaker gavelled the decision, he did not hear the opposition. We objected to the amendment. I will clarify why. We stood on a matter of principle. It's the second time that we have done this in Parliament. First, when Bill 17 came, I raised the point of order in the floor of Parliament to tell the Honourable Speaker that that case is before the courts. So what is the decision? And we also did not vote. We did not vote when Bill 17 or Act 22 was passed in Parliament as a matter of principle, because it was before the courts. Same thing with this amendment, Vijay. We also raised the point of order that 8 women or what, Fijian women, had also taken this to court. When we objected, when we raised probably the Honourable Speaker, because she was probably caught up with his emotions he did not hear us. And we were going to abstain from the voting as well, as a matter of principle. And we need to clarify that. We did not endorse, but as a matter of principle, because it was before the courts, we decided that we will not vote for it.
The question also is, do you believe that the amendment harmed the Fiji First Party's chances of winning the elections?
You know, context is very, very important, Vijay. You know, it's not about victimizing our women. It's not about victimizing Mr. Niko Nawaikula. But I think when that issue came up, it was taken to court. The decision was against government. Government saw that there was a gap or a weakness or whatever the terminology is in the law, and that is why that amendment came to court. It's about keeping the integrity of the electoral roll. That is the context. Nothing against our women. You know, we fully supported CEDAW, the Convention of Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. We, during our term in government, ensured that we have this, the operationalization of CEDAW. We supported all those. It's nothing against our women. It's nothing against Mr. Nawaikula, but it's that context. It's about the integrity of the electoral law. I am Inia Seruiratu, but in my birth certificate is Batikoto. So I'm using Inia Seruiratu since then, and that has not been changed. So, you know, it's about that integrity of, because there are security implications as well, and we need to be mindful of this. That's the context.
My question in relation to women. Now, The issue, I think, which became a contentious issue was when the birth certificate was expected to be changed and the husband's name was expected to be put in the birth certificate, on whether that would have been the right procedure or process to be undertaken, or it was enough to have the birth certificate connected with the marriage certificate and that would suffice. What are your thoughts on that? Your thoughts on that?
If I remember it correctly in the context, our women were given the option. They were given the option. But then that comes with the responsibilities attached to the decisions that they will take as well. If they continue with their married name, and then they will have to produce the birth certificate. I think this is where the difficulty arises, because accessing within the limited time was not possible for some. Some, I know, I even had some discussion with some of relatives of mine. Some said, oh, don't go and vote simply because you were born as this and you need to maintain that. People interpret it differently, they see it differently, and of course they made decisions on their own as well. And those decisions need to be respected. But the principle and the intent of the law was not to victimize people, but of course, as I've stated, it's the integrity of the electoral roll.
You're watching Fiji Village Straight Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan. We have a few more questions to go with. We're just trying to accommodate the questions that were sent in. This is one from Minesh Bhagwan. How can the opposition help in the economic development of the country instead of criticisms on all decisions taken by government?
Vijay, I have stated very, very clearly in our discussions tonight that I want us to be seen as a different opposition, the governing party. So it's that comes with a lot of responsibility. We are not criticizing for the sake of criticizing. We are offering alternatives, options as well. After the budget was passed on the Thursday night, the next morning, during our caucus meeting before we went into Parliament, because I saw that a few were affected, because probably it's the first time for them to be in Parliament, go through the budget process. I had a good session with the opposition members, alternative government. I told them, the democratic process has taken its course. Don't be disheartened. We have debated, we have offered our alternatives, we have given motions for amendments, but in the end, it's a game of numbers, voted against. The focus now is the budget implementation. And we have gone ahead with that work, Vijay. So, in our caucus, we are looking at 4 things now. First, people need to understand the budget. And we have prepared a few slides to be given to all members of the opposition. People need to understand the budget. What is our expected income, what is our planned expenditure, very rough, the brief overview. 2, how does the budget impact us? We benefit from the budget, of course, budget affects all of us as well. Once the budget is passed, I see it as that's a national budget. I will benefit from it as well. At the same time, it will have implications on me as well. This is something that we are also taking out to our people. 3, what are the opportunities in the budget? We have looked at all the opportunities, and we thank government for maintaining most of the initiatives that we started off. In terms of social protection, in the agriculture sector. So we are going to tell the voters, this is for people in the urban areas. If you are considering your first home, this is what's available. If you are a farmer, in terms of livestock, this is what's available in agriculture. And the last thing is, how can we mitigate or cushion some of the effects of the budget? Next week will be interesting, Vijay. 1st of August, where the budget kicks in. Of course, we appreciate the 22.0 rated VAT items, but then the reality will hit us next week when the 15% VAT on other will come into effect. So we are advising our people. It starts with us. I'm doing backyard gardening. When I'm free, I'm going to the village. I have, we talked about diversifying the economy. I always believe in leadership by example. I am a cane farmer. I am a ginger farmer. I am a ndalo farmer. At home, I've started first 5 eggplants trees last week. And now I'm waiting, I'm looking for tomato seeds and whatever. And then cucumber and beans. Just in that, that's how the advice that we are trying to give to the people. But in terms of growing the economy and helping government, again, we've given our support where our experience and expertise and knowledge is needed. We are happy to work with government because we all need a healthy, sustainable economy because it's good for Fiji now, into the future, and of course good for our children.
That's Mr. Inia Seruiratu, the leader of the opposition, appearing on Fiji Village Straight Talk tonight. And we thank you on behalf of our listeners and viewers for availing yourself and talking directly to the people based on the questions that they've had. Until next week, have a great evening.